Hi everyone. This is usually where we put our Treaty 1 acknowledgement, and while that is very important, a lot of other things are happening in the world right now. Bam Bam and I can barely begin to understand what many people face on a regular basis in the United States. So for whatever it's worth from these weird openly queer Canadians, one of whom is Indigenous, please know that we stand with you. Stay safe, wear safety gear including masks, wash your hands, and fight on. Black Lives Matter.
Welcome to Azeroth, a History, a look into the history of Azeroth and how it pertains to World of Warcraft today. I'm your co-host, Bam Bam Anderson.
And I'm your co-host, Win Stark, aka Senppai. So, today we're going to talk about the trolls of the Warcraft universe, and we're not going to go into absolutely everything, since we'll be doing deeper dives on it later for sure. Because there's a few things that I'm like, oh, I can't fully go into this yet, but they will be coming.
That's exciting, just the little tease at the end of the episode being like, guess we'll have to wait and find out.
Yeah, I mean, you won't have to, well, you'll have to wait. Depending on what the subject is, you might have to wait a couple months, but yeah. It's also a much older history than the history of the elves, which we have gone into.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That was January?
Oh, yeah, I'm relaying the fact that they're older.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that we talked about elves. I remember elves.
I mean, Draenei are older. Like, their history is 25,000 years, whereas the elves are 10,000 years.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Alright, so this is gonna start about 16,000 years ago, when the trolls ruled most of the land on Azeroth. This is long after the Titans came to Azeroth and dealt with the old gods, and, like, put them in their prisons.
Yeah.
The trolls are one of the native species to Azeroth, we think, which is probably also why they're everywhere.
Yeah, okay.
And part of what helped them survive, as well as was their ability to, like, regenerate. So, think, like, Wolverine regeneration, but, like, on steroids. Okay. Like, they can regrow limbs.
Damn.
Yeah.
Oh, so, like, Deadpool.
Yeah. I don't think it's quite the same way that his does, though.
It doesn't go through a baby phase.
It kind
of grows back.
I don't think there's any full Winnie the Pooh going on. That was one of my favorite parts of that entire movie.
Oh, you would land me with a funny right as I was taking a sip of my beverage.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, there was no splatter, so...
Okay, so back in the very early days, the trolls were led by shadow hunters. So they're basically masters of voodoo and shadow magic. And they were so respected that even as the trolls moved to, like, make cities and, like, larger settlements, the shadow hunters weren't necessarily in charge, but they were still, like, highly respected.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty cool. So you said, like, voodoo? That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we'll get into some trivia after, but yeah, it's really neat. Although then we're told stay away from the voodoo, so I don't know.
You're told to what?
One of the troll lines when you talk to them is stay away from the voodoo. I guess maybe they're just warning people who don't know what they're trifling with. I guess maybe,
right?
That could be. I'm gonna go with that. Like, leave it to the people who know what they're doing. Leave it to them.
Yes, I like that. I like that about it, because it, like, in real life, voodoo is definitely, like, a closed religion, just, like, specifically for certain people.
Mm-hmm.
So, it makes sense that it's kind of the same in the game. You would hope that would make it, like, better, a good representation.
I think so. I think it's a very good representation.
That's what you want. As somebody who dabbles in the arcane on occasion, it's nice to see good representations out there.
Absolutely, and that's part of why I don't like Drustvar. There's a lot of that, like, the only good witch is a dead witch. It's like, well, no, yeah.
Ouch.
Granted, in Drustvar, literally all of the witches are under the rule of a really evil presence.
Well, that's just sad. They need to be liberated, not killed.
I mean, I don't know how we do that, but yeah. Alright, so trolls developed many customs over the years, which differ a little bit through different tribes. Most of them worshipped the wild gods, except they didn't call them wild gods, they called them Loa.
Okay.
A lot of whom actually lived on a mountain ridge called Zandalar. The most powerful tribe called themselves the Zandalari, claimed the highest reaches of the mountain, and they built a large cluster of shrines to the Loa, which would later become the temple city of Zuldazar. As time went on, the Zandalari kind of got a little uppity, we'll say.
Yeah, okay.
Their culture was very caste-based, and so the lower castes started leaving, and they saw it as a good thing, but ultimately thought, like, oh, you're just, like, rebelling teenagers, you'll be back for approval later on, which didn't really happen.
Oh, wow. Like, that's some condescending bullshit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And they're huge hypocrites for it. Not just that, there's more stuff coming.
Oh, no.
But from the lower caste, two large empires emerged, with lots of little tribes within them, and outside of them, too. The Amani Empire and the Gurubashi were the two main empires aside from the Zandalari.
Okay.
I wrote about it later, so we'll get into it. There's another empire to the north that did come out too, but they were not as big or as powerful.
Sucks to suck.
I mean, yeah, we'll get into them. The Amani took over kind of the middle forest land of the large continent, and then the Gurubashi took the southern jungles. And then all three empires were... I mean, they didn't really get along, but they kind of had, like, uneasy peace. Like, they didn't fight against each other very much, but they also weren't like, hey, buddy, let's go get a drink at the bar kind of thing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So about 16,000 years ago, before the First War, that's when the Akir insects started to emerge again. So these are the insects that evolved from the old gods, like from their like sputum, I guess. Ugh.
Oh wow.
I don't know if sputum is the right word for that. Actually, I don't understand old god anatomy enough. They kind of like shit like drops off of them, and then things come out of that, and that's what the Akir are.
Things drop off of them?
Yeah, like almost like a shedding of skin, I guess?
Yeah, okay.
Except not quite that. A little bit more gross.
Gross. Like excretions?
I'm gonna go with that. Yeah, actually, that might be more apt.
Gross.
Yeah, right?
But I mean, like, very indicative of, like, old god type mentality, because, like, Aphrodite sprang from the severed testes of Uranus, I believe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Neat. Okay. That's also kind of gross.
It is, yeah. Gaia dropped the testes in the ocean, and then it made a froth, and from the froth riseth Aphrodite in all her splendor.
That made it sound so much worse than the first time you said it.
Oh, I'm happy to help.
We'll have to talk about mythology at some point, too. But yeah, so the insects evolved from the old gods, and then they further evolved later on, depending on whichever corruption that they were closest to, like, so whichever old god. But they had kind of been put away when the Titans came, and then this is when they're coming back out. And this started the Akir and Troll War. This lasted a long time. And the Zandalari decided to band together with the other troll tribes and empires, and they managed to create an alliance with the Gurubashi and the Amani. Oh, and here we go. And the Drakari to the north. So that's the empire called the north, to the north of the continent.
Right, yeah, the pussy ones.
Yeah. They're also frost trolls, so I don't know if that gives you any kind of indication. They're cold. They're but they called this the Empire of Zul, and they were eventually able to drive back the Akir. They split up the Akir into their kind of own separate empires. So the ones driven underground to the north formed as Jal Darub. That's where like the Oh shit, why am I blanking on the name? Spider things. Nerubians.
Ew.
It's in the name, Nerub. Words are hard today.
Words are hard every day with you.
I mean, yeah.
It's okay. We all have words are hard times.
True. The ones to this that were driven to the south near Ankiraj, were the Kiraji, and then the Mogu, around where the Mogu live, which we haven't talked about them. The Mantid Empire was formed. So,
Okay.
and then that's kind of where they evolved from there. But we're not really getting into all of them today because we're gonna go focus on trolls.
Trolls!
And not the Anna Kendrick trolls either. And not the internet trolls. Just trolls.
Just your regular old trolls.
So the aftermath of this war left the troll empires in a decent place. But they kind of grew distant from each other again.
Mm-hmm.
They kept their own territories without really trying to branch out. And then their cities blossomed around the continent. So the Empire of Zul kind of just faded without really being, like, entirely dismantled kind of thing.
Yeah, okay.
But the name Zul remained, mostly because it's the troll word for great, or good.
Nice.
The Amani built Zul Aman, their main city. The Gurubashi built Zul Garub. And the Drakari built Zul Drak. And then the Zandalari kind of withdrew back into their mountains.
Okay.
So the Zandalari did also have some run-ins with the Mogu. We haven't really talked about, and we will definitely at some point. I don't know when, but it's going to be a while. They do come back into the story a little bit later, so I need to mention them. Mostly in how they kind of regarded each other. The Zandalari thought the Mogu were kind of like lesser, since they resorted to slavery, while the trolls didn't. You can probably see where this is gonna go. Also, the presence of the Loa gave them like a higher sense of self-importance. So both of the empires kind of like trusted each other not to attack, since it would likely end in like sort of like a Mexican standoff. Like, it's not gonna go good for either of us, so let's just not.
Right. Damn.
Yeah. The Mogu also promised some of the Zandalari leaders a chunk of land, which they would eventually try to claim because of other things that happened a little bit later on, that we'll get into in another episode. But they were not successful in the end, returning to Zandalar in shame. As they well should.
Yes, absolutely. Shame.
It's around that time that a small sect of dark trolls from the Amani Empire split off and moved to the Well of Eternity, and that's where they ended up evolving into night elves.
Damn.
Yeah, we think anyway. From what I could find of research, that's what happened. So, which also kind of means that it does work. Like, that magic probably works pretty quickly, because that's about 15,000 years ago, and the Sundering with Queen and all that was about 10,000 years ago. So within 5,000 years' time for that to happen, that's pretty crazy, right? It's pretty quick.
To evolve from trolls into night elves?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's some rapid evolving.
Magic is weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
The Night Elves also further divided the Troll empires by taking over much of the continent and dismantling a lot of supply chains to the Trolls. But that was kind of it for the Troll empires for a long time. Like, Zulaman and Zul'Gurub still existed, so did Zuldazar. And nothing really went on aside from the Sundering.
Yeah, okay. They were just chilling.
Pretty much. At least from what I can tell. Like, there's really nothing else between that written. Until the Sundering actually happens. The Zandalari did a very similar thing to the Night Elves of Suramar City. They shielded their mountain with protective spells, and then once the Sundering was over and they let down the barrier, they found out, they realized that their mountains had become an island instead.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this also kind of added a little bit more distance to the Troll empires. Like, now they have water between most of them.
Yeah, that certainly makes things a little more separated.
Yeah, and that was, like, really the end of the Empire of Zul, too. because now they're not just separated by the differences. Water.
Right.
It did leave some room to explore, though. The Zandalari set out to explore kind of what formed the Great Sea, and this led to the discovery of Kazan, the home of the goblins. They still hadn't fully evolved at that point, and they were still very primitive, like a lot more than they are now. But they did show some intelligence. The main reason the Zandalari wanted to go there, though, was to mine the Kadramite, which is a rare mineral that is only available on Kazan. And then they found out how much that mineral was underneath the island, and then they stopped paying the goblins to work for them, and then just enslaved them.
Oh.
So the high and mighty
That's great.
Right?
That's the Kendallari who did that?
Zandalari, yeah.
Oh, fuck those guys.
Right?
I thought they were supposed to be above slavery.
I know, right? They're like, oh, we're better than you, Mogu, because you guys resort to slaves, and we don't. Oh, never mind, we do.
Oh, wait. I start to see the value of slavery. Let's just do that. Like, oh my god. Wow. Gross.
It's so bad. I feel bad laughing at it, because but at the same time, it's like, well, you're not so high and mighty now, are you? You
Right?
hypocritical
God.
bastards.
I hope you realize that you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, I hope they do too. The Gurubashi and the Amani and the Drakari empires just kind of chilled out and did their own thing. Really nothing of note happened for a while for either of them, for any of them. And for the most part, same thing with the Zandalari. The biggest thing to happen, I don't know exactly where in the timeline, but it's been since 10,000 years ago and the First War. Or actually, I think to about 100 years before the First War. I think there's something else. Yeah, there's other stuff that happens in the 100 years before the First War. So the biggest thing that happened for the Zandalari after their attitude changed towards slavery was the plague of corrupted blood.
Ooh, damn. That sounds metal as fuck.
Yeah, and you've actually probably heard of this, even though you might not necessarily realize that you've heard of this. Kind of. Sort of. This was the thing that also happened in World of Warcraft a while ago, that scientists in the real world are still studying. This was kind of written in response to that thing happening. Yeah, a foolish troll many years ago wanted to summon Hakar the Soul Flayer, who is a blood god, and a malevolent Loa. So he just kind of wants to wreak havoc on everything.
Yeah.
This led to a breakout of a blood plague that killed thousands of trolls, and was the most terrifying period of the island's history.
Okay.
And then to deal with the dead, since it was so contagious, the Zandalari built constructs to properly embalm and bury their dead when they couldn't do it themselves.
Okay.
So I guess kind of like smallpox? Because I think that's still contagious even after we die. If we have it. Which we don't.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then
What are scientists studying because of that?
the corrupted blood plague. You know what? I'll get into it a little bit later. I didn't realize I didn't write it there.
Yeah, okay.
But I did write about it later. So, Hakara's gonna come back a little bit later, but we gotta take a look over at the Amadi Empire, because where are they on the map? They're close to Quel'Thalas, the newly formed home of the High Elves.
Okay.
When the High Elves first arrived on the northern part of the continent, there were some clashes with the trolls who already lived there. The trolls were like, "You're defiling our land," and they fought back and tried to rid themselves of the elves. But the elves, being all magically gifted and stuff, they ended up on top of all this. Because they were a lot stronger. Magic is weird.
Yeah, makes sense. They look all frail and piddly, and then they're not.
Yep. It was also thought that the use of the magic could actually bring the attention of the Burning Legion again. So some of the elves decided to kind of hide their city within a protective barrier, which also helped frighten away some of the more superstitious trolls.
Yeah, okay.
except not entirely, because they're vindictive. Which would actually come up.
Trolls are never vindictive.
Oh, they're so vindictive. Especially these ones. So when Anasterian Sunstrider became the High King of Quathlos, some of the ambassadors headed out to the kingdom of Erethdor to help. This is like one of the early human kingdoms.
Okay.
Founded by King Thoradin, and he agreed to help, but he also didn't really trust magic. But he did agree for 100 of his men to start studying under the Elven Sorcerers.
Okay.
In the final battle between the Amani Empire and the united forces of humans and High Elves, not 1 inch was surrendered to the Trolls, and the battle lasted for days until the Elves were like, alright, it's our turn. They let loose their magic against the Trolls, sometimes burning them from the inside out. The fire, the magical fire actually prevented the Trolls' regeneration, which is, scary, right? Right? Anasterion also wielded the weapon of his great-grandfather, Dathramar. The Soul Fellow Malorn was an empowered spellblade, and any of the Trolls' voodoo and hexes and curses did very little to stop it from just kind of ripping through their ranks.
Ah.
So the Trolls tried to retreat at this point.
No doubt.
And then Thoradin's armies continued to hunt them down.
Ah.
And slaughtered every last one they could find.
Damn.
Yeah, so the Amani were largely defeated with basically just their capital city still intact. But they had no real way to launch any attacks against the elves at this point. Or the humans. At least not en masse, but they did continue to raid parts of the forest here and there for a long time. And then, so the Gurubashi was also dealing with some stuff to the south. About 1,500 years before the Dark Portal opened, some of the Gurubashi priests had started to call upon Hakar the Soul Slayer again.
Okay.
So, they started calling themselves the Hakari, like, basically disciples of Hakar. They led many into becoming followers of the Loa, and they conquered the surrounding land and alien islands in the South Seas. So we're at 2 points here of Hakar trying to be summoned at this point. Zedalari observed at first, just kind of like waiting in the wings kind of thing. With Gurubashi territory expanding so quickly, though, they decided to head out and see what was going on. And some of the Gurubashi trolls that had kind of hidden their dislike of Hakari and like what was going on there kind of met up with him and were like, hey, yeah, this is happening. And Zedalari are like, oh no, oh shit, this is bad. So they stormed the city of Zul'Gurub and eventually defeated Hakar and his followers, banishing the lowest spirit from the physical realm.
Well, that's good.
Except not.
No?
Because some of the priests escaped the jungles and eventually built the Temple of Hatal Hakar in the marshlands, kind of to the northeast, where they would start worshipping, or continue worshipping Hakar again, and also try to summon him again.
Well, I mean, yeah.
So we're at 3 now.
What are you gonna do?
So we're at 3 times now.
Has he shown up yet?
He made it in to the, like, with the first raid on Zul'Gurub, he made it in. Like, he made it to Azeroth.
But he was able to be defeated?
Yeah. He's definitely not infallible.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
And I mean, good on them for not knowing when to quit.
Right.
Stick to your values. You know, they've already tried to kill you once. What's the worst they're gonna do? Try again?
I mean, this gets better, too. Like, so we're at 3. Keep that in mind. We're at 3.
Okay.
This third time, though, because of how their worship was starting to warp the land around them, it got the attention of a green dragon. Ysera. Yeah.
Aww.
So the dragon aspect is like, excuse me, what? So she investigated, found out what they were doing, attacked, and sunk the temple.
Ooh, underground temple, underwater,
underwater, because it's swampy and
yes, marshland.
yeah. And so the priests kind of abandoned their rituals. So she placed some of her fellow green dragons to watch over the temple, just in case they were trying to, like, have it happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Which, of course, it would, because there's one thing that I've learned in all of this research. These trolls never fucking learn.
Nah, you gotta try again. Alright. That can't possibly happen again. I feel like this next time is gonna be it, guys.
Right? Before we get back there, though, we gotta go back to Zandalar. About 100 years before the Dark Portal was opened.
Okay.
The goblins that were enslaved to mine the Cagemite, because they were around it, breathing it in constantly, it started affecting them, and it started making them smarter and craftier over the years.
Is that the fancy mineral that got all of those Maha whatever enslaved?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they started inventing things like traps and explosives. and they rebelled.
Finally!
And they chased...
that's a beautiful, like, karmic retribution shit right there.
Yeah. Also very apropos right now.
Right?
A little bit. What was left of the Zandalari Kazan fled after the uprising, because, like, that's not worth it to deal with, which I kind of see where they're getting at.
Yep.
But yay, go goblins! And then when the humans of Stormwind started branching out into the jungles of Stranglethorn, this really upset what remained of the Gurubashi tribes that were still there.
Yeah.
They were splintered, true, but they were still the Gurubashi. Eventually, Prince Lane Rin set out on a mission with a couple of friends of his. The three of them ended up finding out that the trolls were once again starting to toy with the forbidden blood magic.
Come on, guys! Didn't you learn last time and when it killed a bunch of your friends?
Right? None of the trolls they met that day survived, but it was easy for the other trolls to piece together what happened and kind of where that came from.
Yeah.
And so they reached out to the other tribes in the area, and they kind of united again against their enemy.
Good job.
Eventually, the Gurubashi tribes were once again left in ruin. Because y'all need to learn. The vast majority of them were slain in an attack on Stormwind. A lot of that centers around someone we haven't talked about yet, but we will eventually. It's such a complicated story that it's a little crazy. He needs his own episode for sure.
Okay.
And that was all we really know about the Troll Empires for a while. They chilled out.
The Dark Portal opens soon then, right?
Yeah. Kind of, yet. No, wait, hang on. Where am I in the timeline? I don't fully remember where I am here in time. No, this is before that. No, wait, is it? God. Because some things don't properly have... like, proper dates to them, so it's kind of hard to piece exactly where it is. I can't remember if this is when the Dark Portal opens. But the Amani tribe, a troll rose to power by the name of Zul Jin. And he was feared by the High Elves, and because he would raid surrounding forests.
Wait, is his name literally Great Gin?
Pretty much.
I almost want to drink gin.
It's spelled J-I-N, though.
So, there could be differences in spelling from location to location.
I think with the troll language, I don't think there's very much, I don't think there's very much difference between that.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, I think most of the spelling, like, throughout all of Trolls is kind of very largely the same. We will get more into some of his atrocities later on, because he's a real bad guy. The big notes during all of this was that he was approached by the Horde during the First War. Okay, yeah, so this is after the, this is kind of during the time of the first, of the portal opening.
Yeah, okay.
He did not initially join them, but he did later on. and then he was caught in something, and he ended up actually cutting off his arm to escape, when the Amani withdrew from the Horde for good.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Savage.
He did not just completely disappear, though. He eventually went back to Zulaman and started to rebuild his army. And he had the time and the means, since most of Azeroth was focused on the Burning Legion and the war on Outland. It also meant opportunistic treasure hunters would try to make their way into Zulaman, and this is how they learned of the Blood Elves joining the Horde, which infuriated Zul'jin. So his most hated enemies joined with his former allies.
Yeah, that's gotta sting.
Yeah. And then adventurers were eventually sent into Zulaman, and he was killed.
Ah.
So yeah. Die, Zul'jin. You jerk. One thing we haven't fully got into, though, is the formation of the Horde, which is where our Darkspear tribe comes in.
Okay.
They originally lived in Stranglethorn Vale as part of the Gurubashi Empire, and they kind of warred with their neighboring tribes, and were eventually driven out after being thrown into conflict after conflict. They were a lot more peaceful, and a lot less kind of bloodthirsty, I guess, than the surrounding tribes.
Yeah, okay.
They moved to some islands where they would tangle with a group of Murlocs, and this would... Because, Murlocs just gotta be everywhere, too.
Yeah.
This would also be where a group of orcs would take refuge on the island after a storm.
Yeah, okay.
The leader of these orcs, Thrall...
Oh.
Yeah, important. And the leader of the trolls, Senjin... They were captured by a group of Naga and taken below the islands to a complex cave system that kind of served as a prison. Mm-hmm. The leader of the Naga was successful in sacrificing Senjin, but Thrall was able to free himself. Just a little bit too late, so he couldn't save his new friend.
Well, shit.
Yeah. After making it back to the surface of the island, though, Senjin's son, Vol'jin... took leadership of the Darkspear and pledged their aid to the Horde, eventually moving with them to the Echo Isles and Durotar.
Okay. And was Senjin the son of whatever Jin?
I don't think we actually know Senjin's dad. I don't have it written down anyway.
I'm just guessing based off the nomenclature there.
There is a lot of Jins in Troll Society.
Yeah, okay.
I'll have to look up names after. Because I didn't write all of them down, and honestly, if the amount of names that I have in my head, period, is amazing that I don't just get them all screwed up anyway.
No doubt.
Especially when they're so similar. But, this is all pre-World of Warcraft. But we should probably take a break for just a second and take a trip to the auction house.
Woo! If you like what we do, consider donating through our Patreon at patreon.com/Senppai and Bam Bam. Remember, Senppai has 2 P's. If you're unable to do that, we would also really appreciate a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or any other podcast service you use. It helps us open up to a wider audience. You can also share us with your friends, your family, your guildies, your neighbor, your boss, anybody who you think could use a little brightening. Our newest patron is a friend of ours, Keely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Keely. We love you.
Right? Amazing friend Ward.
Catch our Machinima with Bam Bam series, which is available to patrons a week early and goes up weekly on Tuesdays, making your reset day just a little bit better with some ridiculous shit that we love doing. If you have any suggestions for that, we will take them on Discord or by email. I'm also on Twitter, so if you want to hit me up there, cool.
Also, if you want to get in touch with us over on Discord, there will be a link in the show notes on the website to join that. It also is open to everybody with a patron-only section.
Also, if you want to come hang out with Senppai on stream, come chill out with me while I fail or win at stuff. I usually stream raids on Twitch, as well as a few other things here and there. Always down to chat, WoW, and pretty much anything else. Almost anything else.
Right?
Yeah.
An important amendment.
I mean, there's some things that I'm like, I don't know if I really want to get into that on stream, because I know it'll it'll get heated.
Right.
I don't know if I want to get heated. But yeah, come chill out. It's also kind of tied into the Discord too. So there are announcements when I go up on the Twitch through the Discord.
Yes,
So
there sure are.
Sorry. Not sorry.
Right? Don't apologize.
I know I'm Canadian, but no, I'm not sorry. Not about that. Alright. Let's get back to some trolls.
Woo!
So, during the events of World of Warcraft, we also happen upon the ruins of the Temple of Hatal Hakar. And of course...
The ones that were underwater?
Yes. So, a tiny portion of it sticks up out of the water.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, like maybe 20 feet of it.
Okay, kind of iceberg style.
Mm-hmm. And
Just enough to get you interested.
exactly. And of course, as adventurers, we gotta go exploring.
Heckin' yeah.
So, we head down where we find some of the green dragons that Ysera had charged with ensuring that Hakar would not be summoned again. Except that they were all corrupted by a troll prophet, injecting them with the blood of Hakar.
Oh.
Yeah. So this left the priest room to start toying once again with summoning Hakar.
Why, though? Guys.
I've lost count. Are we at 4 or 5?
I think this is 4.
And it's still not the last.
Oh, jeez. You know, they're just really good followers. A car should be proud to have such faithful followers.
In a way, you're right. I don't like that you're right, but yeah. This... Yeah, so the Zandalari trolls hear once again of another attempt to summon in the Temple of Atalakar, which was thwarted by adventurers, so I think that was 4. So the Zandalari kind of breathe for a second, they're like, okay, good. And then they hear about another one! The priests of Atalakar made it back to Zul'Gurub.
God damn it.
And they try to get to summon Aloha. So now I think we're at 5. I think this is the 5. So the Zandalari sent out a strike force to the jungle of Stranglethorn. And they kind of started sending adventurers into the temple to stop the summoning, which was headed by the priest leader Jindo the Hexer.
Okay.
Jindo was killed, but his spirit kind of hung around for quite a while.
Why not?
Yeah.
You gotta make sure that the summoning goes properly next time.
Well, there's that, because it was actually too late by the time adventurers got there. Hakar was able to manifest on Azeroth, which I believe was the second time that was successful.
Woo! Good job!
And he's finally defeated again! Ironically by his own blood magic.
What?
It ended up, poisoning him. So his heart was brought to the Zandalari, and they banished it from the world. Again. After the events of the Burning Crusade expansion, we journey to Northrend to deal with the Lich King, and part of this we come across the Drakari. Some of them have fallen to the Lich King's forces, and there are others who have actually joined him, either by choice or by force, not entirely sure. But their ranks are pretty much decimated, and that what's left is basically a skeleton crew. Pun intended. During all of this, one of the Zandalari trolls we'll be introduced to in a second here actually witnessed the fall of the Drakari Empire and witnessed them sacrificing their Loa for power.
What?
Yeah, it's like this really cool, serpentine god, and yeah, he gets sacrificed for power. It's great.
Gross.
So the prophet Zul, that's his name, yep. Zul.
Cool.
Yep.
Sweet.
I don't know if he was born with it, or if he chose that name, but yeah. Anyways, he was sent out of Zandalar by King Rastakhan, partly because Zul was a trusted advisor, but mostly because the king was kind of tired of hearing. Zul kept predicting earthquakes and tidal waves all over the world, and Rastakhan was just like, "Yeah, just go." And he just
boy who cried earthquake.
Kind of. He described the capital city of Zandalar actually sinking into the ocean.
Yeah.
So Rastakhan granted him a ship and sent him off to try and bring the other troll empires together.
Okay.
When Deathwing broke the world, literally, Zul's visions kind of came true, a little bit. Zandalar didn't sink completely, but it was rocked quite heavily. The temple actually started kind of listing a little bit, but with all of the Zandalari working together, they were able to kind of right the pyramid again and rebuild much of what broke.
Well, that's good.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, he wasn't entirely wrong. It just didn't go the way he said it would.
Well, and that's probably because he did things to intervene.
Mm-hmm.
That's how that goes.
It's not even so much that he did things to intervene, it's that everybody else did. Because he was off. He was off on a ship doing other stuff. Bringing together Jindo of the Gurubashi, Dakara of the Amani, and Vol'jin of the Darkspear in an unnamed frost troll. He kind of brought them together in a sort of summit, the goal being to unite into a single mighty empire to save their race from extinction.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what Zul told Rastakhan at any point in all of this, in terms of his own plans.
Mm-hmm.
And we only ever see anything about this in a patch trailer.
Okay.
Vol'jin refuses to join up with the Zandalari, stating that the Horde are his people, and leaves with the rest of his delegation. And while he does that, Zul warns that anyone who would stand against them for very long, that none would stand against them for very long, and he kind of summons a fiery image of Hakar.
Ooh. Oh.
This is gonna be 6.
Yes.
So this is when we get to go back to Zul'Abad and Zul'Gurub again and deal with some shit. Jindo attempting to kind of break Hakar into submission, I guess, was when we go into Zul'Gurub. Hakar kind of leaves Jindo as... well, I can't remember what his title is when we go in there. I think he's like, Jindo the God Conqueror or something, or God Breaker.
Oh, wow. Somebody's fucking cocky.
Right? And then when he's dead, Hakar leaves him Jindo the Broken.
Yes.
And, like, he's naked. Like, he's taken everything from him.
Good, that's what gods are supposed to do.
Yep. And thankfully, Hakar was not fully able to come back to Azeroth again. Yay! But still attempt number 6. Luckily for the rest of us. I mean, yeah. Finally, we make our way down to Pandaria again, where the Zandalari have also traveled and are causing a ruckus.
Why not? Ruckuses are fun.
Right? We're not going to go into everything they did here because I think it has more to do with the Mogu than the Zandalari, but they do play an important part.
Okay.
But Zul does end up making his way back to Zandalar at some point. And then we don't hear much about them for a while. After a war chief is unseated, which we'll get into another day, Vol'jin, the leader of the Darkspear Trolls, is named war chief.
Good on him. Congrats on the promotion.
Right? We're not going to talk too much about him today, because he's going to get his own episode. I think in a couple months. I think I have it set for.
Sweet.
Mostly because he has a lot to do with the Shadowlands Devil and kind of what's going on in that. But, yeah, that's going to be fun. Some things happen, though, and the Mantle of War Chief does end up getting passed to Sylvanas, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
I mean, you sound way too excited about that, but...
I mean, let her be a war chief. We live her best, except she makes some bad choices, but whatever.
Some?
It's fine.
Sure. And shows the internal conflict of me, the lore nerd, versus the Horde. Shortly before the events of Battle for Azeroth, Zul sets out again with Princess Talanji of the Zandalari. The goal being to meet with the Horde leaders and negotiate with them.
Okay.
Except that they're captured by the Alliance and thrown into the stockades.
Well, shit.
Yeah, so the Horde sends out a strike team to sneak in and break them out.
Well, yeah.
This is actually the first time we actually get to see Zool in-game, and we learn a good bit about him at this point. While we're sneaking back out of the city, we also get confronted by Jaina being all fucking badass.
Woo!
And while we're running away, Zool picks up a torch and starts setting buildings on fire. And so when Jaina confronts us one last time at the docks, he's like, maybe your abilities would be more useful somewhere else right now, and kind of points up at the city that's on fire. Super not cool, Zool.
Right?
We get away on Talanji's ship and head for Zandalar. And this is when she prays to her Loa. We're gonna get into the Loa more in another episode, too.
Okay.
But I did send you the cinematic for this, because, quite frankly, he's a giant T-Rex!
Yep.
He's awesome. Yeah, so we finally get to Zandalar, and then there's kind of a whole bunch of storylines that go on at the same time here. There's an offshoot of trolls to the north of the main city in the swamps of Nazmir, called Blood Trolls, and they worship a blood god. Not Hakar, though.
Okay.
They worship Cahoon, which is the Titan experiment gone wrong. This is them messing around with old god blood and accidentally creating an old god. So Talanji actually heads out the expedition to the swamps and take back the territory. And of course she works very closely with the new leader of the Darkspear tribe, Rokan. We also head out to the deserts of Vol'dun, which used to be Jungle Land. We find out that a high-ranking general of the Zandalari is basically secreting away anyone who speaks ill of him over to the wasting desert. And he's working with this Sethrak, the snake people, who are trying to take over the land and also just try to destroy everything. And his ultimate goal is to wake up a powerful Akir that's been sleeping beneath the sands, which he succeeds. And this is where we get Mithrax coming in.
Oh, damn.
And then while we're going around Zuldazar and the main city, Dazar Lore, we find out that Zul's been up to some shit. Not only did he summon that image of Hakar, kind of hinting at some, not so cool things.
Yeah.
He tries to assassinate King Rastakhan.
What?
He's...
Come on, bro, I thought we were friends.
Right! And he's almost successful.
Oh, shit.
The only thing that stops the king from dying, is that we seek out his Loa, Razan, who ends up threatening the Loa of Death, Wansamdi, basically, return this king's spirit, or I'm gonna take you out of the world, kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
That's
some metal-ass shit.
It's an awesome exchange. Zul's other followers on the council also have turned to dark ways, as well, in the name of Cahoon. Yasma succeeds in killing the spider Loa Shadra and absorbing her essence, transforming her into this, weird, spidery priestess.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, it's really cool. And
I guess if killing gods and absorbing their power is cool.
That part's the not cool part, but she does look pretty boss. And she is a boss later on, and her boss fight includes a lot of spiders.
Ew.
I'm so glad this was not a thing 10 years ago when I was still scared of spiders.
Oh, no doubt.
That would have been so bad. They also succeed in bringing down Razan, and they resurrect him as a mindless undead husk.
Why not,
It's so horrible. So with his Loa now dead, Rastakhan is unsure of what to do. After a particularly bad attack from the blood trolls north of the city, he finds an altar and calls upon Buan Samdi. Once again, Loa of Death is probably...
That's a choice.
It's a choice. And they made a deal. The Loa would empower the king, and Rosticon would elevate Bwonsamdi above the other Zandalari Loa on the condition that his bloodline be devoted to Bwonsamdi. He also did not tell his daughter about this. Zul finally brings Mithrax to the Pinkamid, which is what we call the Big Pyramid of Dazar'alor.
Okay.
Because it's big and it's pink. It's a very apt name. He brings Mithrax to the Pinkamid to destroy the final seal that's holding Gahun's prison intact. Rosticon uses his new power to kill Zul, very, like, Sparta-like. First he stabs him, and then just, like, kicks him off the top of the pyramid. It's great.
Oh, shit.
Except this is not the end of Zul.
Well, of course not. He's like a Rasputin motherfucker.
Oh, fuck, don't. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of that stuff going on in Azeroth.
Put some poison into his wine. Rasputin.
Although...
Drink it all and set up your fine.
Although Zul was more, like, stabby stab than poison.
Well, yeah, but there was more than one attempt on Rasputin's life. That's what makes him worth mentioning.
That's true. Alright, fair. It's definitely not the end of his plans, since Mithrax does blast the seal, and, yeah, that sets free Gahun. Yay.
Woo!
Before we can get there, though, we do have to head into the Tomb of the Zandalari, which is where the first king lay resting. So King Dazar, for who the pyramid is named after, he's angry because Zul is, twisting his mind, and so by defeating him, we actually free him of Zul's weird, mind voodoo bullshit.
Sweet.
Yeah. Zul's a dick. And then we go to Uldir, which is the Titan facility below Nazmir, where Gahun is being kind of held captive. And then we face Zul again, this time as an undead troll, having been resurrected by Gahun.
Oh, shit.
We do eventually bring him down, so yay!
Yeah, that.
During the events of Uldir, however, the war between the Alliance and the Horde kind of ramps up a good bit. Slowly but surely. The Alliance launches an attack on Dazar'alor. They draw the Horde forces up to Nazmir to the north, and then they sail from the port at the south. The idea being to drive a wedge between the Zandalari and the Horde. Except that doesn't end up working so much. They did eventually make their way up the pyramid, and they confronted the king, and they kill him.
Why not? You know, just why talk when you could just kill?
Yep. And even with his powers from Bwonsamdi, they do kill him. But it does not drive a wedge between the two forces. So with Rosticon's final dying breath, he apologizes to his daughter, and the pact that he made with Bwonsamdi transfers to her, and she is pissed.
Well, yeah. That just fucks her whole family.
Yep, and she doesn't really know a lot about it, and we'll get it more into it when we talk about the Loa, but yeah, Bwonsamdi's like, oh, he didn't tell you? Yeah, hi.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a stinker. During Rosticon's funeral, Talanji pledges to the Horde, and the Zandalari are accepted with open arms. And that's kind of mostly it for now. We haven't gotten a chance for Talanji to really grapple with what she's kind of been given now at this point, which I think will be coming in the Shadows Rising novel, which is due out in July.
Oh, shit.
I don't know. I don't think that's been pushed back. But yeah, this is our first episode in preparation for all of those discussions, so I'm excited.
Woo!
I hope you've enjoyed, and I'm so excited to dig more into stuff.
Oh, hell yeah. The trolls have definitely been an interesting adventure.
Right? I thought they tried to summon Hakar 7 times. I might have been wrong on my count.
It's possible when we thought we were on 4, we were actually on 5.
This is, it's probable, actually. Goddamn trolls. Alright, so, trivia time. Fellow Malorn was passed down from the from generations of the Sunstrider family. I hate your name, Sunstriders. And it was
like Skywalker. Wow, that's some basic ass shit.
Hey.
Seriously though,
You leave my Skywalkers alone.
I'm just saying the Sunstrider is a cheap knockoff.
Is there any original idea under the sun anymore? No.
For names?
Anyways, the sword was forged on commission of Dathomir during the War of the Ancients. And then Anastarian wielded it against the trolls, and it is later given to fire mages as their legion artifact weapon.
Sweet.
Yeah. There are a few areas occupied by small groups of trolls within the city of Dazar'alor. The Amani have their own enclave called Talaman, and they have a few statues of Vol'jin.
Oh.
Not Vol'jin. Zul'jin.
Okay.
See, there we go. There's the screwing up of the names. It was going to happen eventually. I knew it. Many of the forest troll tribes that exist in the area are descended from the Amani tribe, but only the Shadowpine and Vile Branch tribes are known to still be a part of the Empire.
Okay.
Hakar was the origination of the corrupted blood plague incident. So this is the thing that's still studied by science today and during pandemic situations, kind of like right now. It was a debuff put on by the boss, and hunters could get it on their pets, and they dismiss their pets, and it would stay on their pets when it was dismissed.
Okay.
And then they go back to the main city, summon their pet, and it would start infecting people.
Oh.
So I think that part of the Zandalari history was written as a nod to this happening. But I'm not entirely sure. Regardless, this decimated WoW. Like, cities were full of skeletons.
Eek.
Yeah. So, and that's just from people, like, dying and then running back to their body and rezzing, and then dying again and then running back to their body and rezzing.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So that's still studied. And there were people, like, trying to heal it. There were people specifically trying to spread it. So, you know. One of King Rosticon's quotes when you talk to him is, "It is good to be king," which is a reference to Mel Brooks. And another is, "Do not throw off my groove," which is a reference to Roast New Groove. Makes me happy. Even though he's a Zandalari troll, Zul still uses, like, jungle troll models that's, like, hunched over, while other Zandalari stand up straight.
Okay.
And they are tall as fuck. I think they're, like, canonically, I think they're supposed to be, like, 10 or 11 feet.
Holy shit.
They're tall.
Kind of intimidating.
I mean, I'm 5'6".
Right?
It's very intimidating. And trolls largely pull from they pull from a lot of different places. Their accents are usually based on Afro-Caribbean dialects. Most of their religion is based on West African Vodun practices. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm so sorry. And their architecture pulls from pre-Columbian civilizations.
Sweet.
So it's really cool. And the Zandalari are they're specific, I think, Western African accents.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Their voices are awesome. Now we're getting to voices.
Woo!
So, Dave Fennoy voices Vol'jin, as well as Zul, and a number of other voices in WoW. He's one of those voice actors who's, like, he's touched half the things. Like, he's one of those voice actors that is in, like, almost everything.
Oh, yeah.
Most
likes to work.
Oh, yeah, and he's got a great voice. More recently, he's Dr. Pietro Polendina in Ruby.
Okay.
Which I was so happy about that one. Juan Samdi is voiced by Alex Desert, who he was also previously voiced by Dave Fennoy.
Okay.
So Alex Desert has done Nick Fury for a number of different Marvel shows, including Wolverine and the X-Men and Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Oh, so that's pretty cool. Like, that's the animated ones, right?
Yeah. Razan was voiced by Richard Pepple. I think I'm saying that right. If I'm not, please let me know. New actor that I haven't seen a lot of his work, but he does appear in Krypton, the TV series, as Tonzel.
Okay.
Again, I'm not sure if I'm saying that name right. I haven't watched Krypton yet. I'm gonna fuck up this name. I'm gonna feel so bad. Rastakhan was voiced by Kaye Uche. I really hope I'm saying that right. I wasn't able to find a lot of roles because, again, IMDb doesn't have a lot of play roles, and I haven't been able to find another version of that. But he's currently playing Lola in Kinky Boots in the UK and Ireland tour.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Right? He's also been in Avenue Q.
Also amazing.
I don't know who, and if anyone knows where to find these credits, please let me know so I can credit these people. And his voice is awesome. I love his voice. Talanji is voiced by Susan Wokoma, who I haven't really seen a lot of her work either, but I did go and find the show called Crazy Head on Netflix, and it's so fucking great.
Yeah.
She's one of the main characters, and it's like a supernatural demon fighting show.
Oh shit.
It's so great. You're gonna love it, I think. So go find.
Check it out.
Yeah. Also, this kind of happened purely by happenstance, sort of. These are all black actors.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. Enjoy that. That's all I want to say about that. I think that about does it for us today.
We would like to thank the Winnipeg Public Library. We normally record at the Millennium Library in their beautiful Idea Mill makerspace, but we are still social distancing and the libraries are still closed, so I'm in my living room.
And I'm in my tiny bachelor apartment, which everything is the living room and the bedroom. So
I've lived that life. It was only a year ago. I was in the same boots.
Oh yeah, that's right. Our intro and outro music is by Kevin MacLeod, and you can find all of his work on his website, incompetech.com.
Our wonderful artwork is by our good friend Ben Hopper. His Instagram is ScorpioSuka at 7. Or God, wow.
Sorry.
Scorpiosoka 7. SCORPIUSOKA, the number 7. If you'd like to check out more of his work. And he's opening up commissions, so follow him for more information about that.
Absolutely. Get in touch with him, and he deserves all the love. I actually have
All of it?
a command now on my stream. If you type in ! Ben Ben Ben, it's just a thing for Ben.
That's pretty cute.
I was so happy about it. He finally got to witness me doing it one night, and I'm like, yay!
Yay!
Unless he was just lurking before and just didn't say anything, but yeah. Yeah, so thank you for putting up with us for another month of social distancing, and
Yeah.
who knows, maybe one day this world would go back to being... No, it was not a normal place. Maybe it'll go to being a good place one day, hopefully. I hope so.
Soon enough, we will be able to go back to the library.
Oh, not even just that, just everything else going on, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so remember, we love you, 3000. Thank you for joining us, and we'll notice you next time.